Commissioner Holzman's here.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon.
I have 12:59, and Bev, I'll make sure that you're ready before we go on the record. Uh, I don't think I see anyone signed on for public counsel. Is there anyone representing public counsel on the WebEx call? I don't hear an answer. Let me give them at least a few more minutes. Dr. Mark, have you perhaps heard from Nathan Williams or another attorney from public counsel? Is somebody on the way, or do you know?
Yes, Judge, I think Nathan is on now. If I'm reading that correctly.
Oh, I see him. Perfect. Thank you. Council present. Anything before we go on the record? Okay, I'm hearing nothing. Madam Court Reporter, are you ready? All right. Very good. We are on the record. Good afternoon. This is the on the record presentation for file numbers EO 2021-0349 and 0350. This is the time of use rate design, or these are the time of use rate design reports for the Evergy companies. And I would like to get entries of appearance from council, please, beginning with the Evergy companies.
Judge, on behalf of the Evergy companies, let the record reflect the appearance of James Fisher. I'm with the law firm of Fisher and Doherty, and our address is 101 Madison Street, Suite 400, Jefferson City, Missouri, 65101. I'm not sure that Roger Steiner is on at the moment.
Thank you. I don't see Mr. Steiner, but thank you for your entry. Any entry of appearance on behalf of the staff of the commission?
Yes, Judge Pridgeon. My name is Kurt Stokes, CURTSTOKES, on behalf of the staff. Address is 200 Madison Street, Jefferson City, Missouri, 65101.
Thank you. Any entry on behalf of the Office of the Public Counsel?
Nathan Williams, P.O. Box 2230, Jefferson City, Missouri, 65102.
Mr. Williams, thank you. Because we are on WebEx, to the extent that you can, I would ask everyone have your microphone on mute unless you plan to speak, and that will hopefully reduce the feedback for the court reporter. She may need to jump in once in a while to ask who is speaking, so she, because she can't see like she normally would in a hearing room. And I expect everyone is familiar with having to deal with issues like these on WebEx, but I just wanted to remind you. My plan is to hear from the companies first, and then the company would need to be ready to address commission questions, and then we'll do similarly for staff and public counsel. Is there anything from the parties or from the bench before we hear a presentation from Evergy?
Judge, this is Nathan Williams.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Dr. Jeff Mark will be speaking on behalf of public counsel when do you get to that point in the presentation.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything further? All right, if there's nothing further, Mr. Fisher, whenever you are ready, sir.
Well, Judge, first of all, I'd just like to thank the commission for convening this opportunity to make a presentation to the commissioners, the RLJ and the parties. Today, we've got Brad Lutz, who has prepared a PowerPoint on the time of use report, and I'd like to just turn it over to him at this point, if that'd be all right. Brad, are you on?
That's just fine. Thank you.
I am. And if I may I share my screen?
Certainly.
Okay. Hopefully this is coming through. Okay.
I can see it just fine whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you again. And as I'll echo Mr. Fisher's comment, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you today and offer this presentation concerning the Evergy time of use rate design case report. Representing Evergy today will be myself. My name is Brad Lutz. I'm a Director in Regulatory Affairs. And I also have Kim Winslow, Senior Director of Energy Solutions, with me today. The information we'll share has been taken from the company report in this case and details our efforts to deploy the time of use rates in our Missouri jurisdictions. The report also details our plans to expand adoption of time of use rate designs and to modernize our rate options for customers. As is our practice, we begin meetings with a short safety moment. Our topic for today is emergency preparedness. If you turn to slide 2, or I'll advance the slides. September is National Preparedness Month, and ready.gov sets out a 4-step plan that folks should use to address being prepared for emergencies. We would encourage you to take the opportunity to look at that plan and consider doing something similar for you and your families. Within the Evergy rate design report, we've attempted to lay out a proposal, a plan forward that we will adopt. And
Coleman, please leave a message or try me in my office at area code 573-751-41.
Okay, thank you. We've attempted to set out a proposal that will give shape to a rate design that will ultimately be offered in our next general rate proceeding. And in a nutshell, the rate design that we're looking at will build on the success that we believe that the Evergy opt-in TOU rate has had over the last couple of years as we've worked through that deployment. We do acknowledge that there is always room to learn and grow. And with that, we've sought to modify the existing TOU designs that we have, but also to add to those, to find options that can appeal to a larger range of customers and continue to appeal this rate design alternative to our customers. Now, also, we acknowledge that this rate alone is not the way to address what customers need. Has been our process, or has been a key factor of many of the things that we have been attempting to deploy and execute as Evergy. Having the customer at the center of those initiatives is important. And we recognize that we need to have a broad portfolio of rates to address customer needs, and are setting forth a rate modernization plan that can help us lay out those alternatives. TOU is certainly recognized as a cornerstone of that, but we do see that there's a range of alternatives that customers will need to see in order to better engage with their rate designs and their energy usage. Now, briefly, I just want to reinforce that the work that we're doing here is part of a broader effort. As Evergy continues to set forth and respond and build off of successes from its merger, we are also endeavoring to do the sustainability transformation plan. And within that, there are many customer aspects and elements that we think harmonize well with the rate modernization plan and what we've set out here. Again, TOU being a key element of all of that. Now, this slide I won't devote much time to, but it was an effort to capture some of the formal pieces that led us to where we are today with respect to this case. Now we'd like to take just a moment and talk about our current TOU rates. And Kim Winslow, if you would, please take a look at that, or lead us on that, please.
Yes. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Commissioners and Judge, for having us here today. As Brad mentioned, I lead our Energy Solutions team, which is very critical in delivering our products to our customers. One of the things that you'll continue to hear Brad and I talk about today is just the element of educating customers and the importance of helping them along the path and meeting them where they are. We're very pleased to offer the current 3-period TOU rate, which began in October of 2019. And we have successfully achieved our target within our stipulation and agreement. Our target was 3,500 customers. We currently have 55,629 customers enrolled on our 3-period TOU rate. As you can see, our current TOU rate, sorry about that, we have a 6 times differential between the peak to the, from the peak to the super off-peak rate, which has shown to be very effective within our marketing and within the behavioral changes for our customers. We have completed one EM&V. This was a preliminary EM&V, and from that EM&V, we found that there are customer benefits as well as high acceptance by our customers. So far, we have seen roughly about a 3 to 10% annual bill savings, as well as reduction of their peak demand, which is around 4 to 9%. We've also seen that customers have been highly acceptive of the ones who are participating, highly acceptive of this rate, and also they're driven by the savings and they appreciate the choice that we are able to offer to the customers. Next slide. Great, thank you. And I know that we have been before you a couple different times speaking with the commission on the success of our program, so I don't want to spend too much time here. But, just as a reminder, we have done, whenever we first rolled out our program, our TOU program, we did have extensive customer research and education and outreach plan associated with that. So when we first kicked off our TOU program, we did 6 qualitative in-person focus groups so that we could understand more about the tools upon which the customers would want to rely upon. We also believe it's very important to understand what are the expectations and awareness of our program, and that is done through some of our enrollment as well as our unenrollment surveys. Customers also get behavior surveys, which is also used to measure that customer satisfaction and the effectiveness of our tools. When we think about the effectiveness of our tools, we would turn to what we call our rate education report and our online rate analysis tool. What's very important that we see on all of the surveys as well as the education tools that we have is that we do have highly engaged customers involved in the TOU rate. We have found that there is about a 42% unique open rate on both the rate education report, and then we have about 60%, over 60% interaction with the rate analysis tool, which is on our website. So we're seeing very good engagement from our customers. We are also seeing that after customers participate in this program, they are also opening up what we call the rate coach report, which is received on a weekly basis. There's a 57% unique open rate on those reports, and we still continue to see a large amount of viewing, over 63,000 views from our customers viewing their hourly usage and cost on the web. Go to the next slide, Brad. Okay, and when we first began thinking about our education plan, we wanted to make sure that we had established the right objectives. And so we had also reviewed this with stakeholders throughout the process. So we wanted to make sure that we were informing customers on the TOU rate option and how usage during the day affected their bill, how it affected their pricing. We also wanted to continue to educate customers on the TOU option and how that rate plan worked, and enrolling customers in the TOU through targeted and data-driven marketing. And so we have continued to assist customers by enrolling them and creating the tools for this ongoing communication campaign. And if you recall, we do have a simple tagline, wait till 8 to get a lower rate, because our peak period is between 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And on the next slide, with respect to our marketing plan, as I mentioned, we have the tagline, and this helps customers, again, kind of put it in their mind when they should be using energy and when they shouldn't. We also have a very effective multi-channel approach where we're reaching out to customers and providing that large-scale awareness, which also drives enrollment. So we are reaching our customers through website, through video, digital, social, radio, and email. When we first also began our marketing plan, we connected with the innovators, those customers who really try to, they want to try the new things first. Those are our innovators and early adopters. So we first built greater awareness with those groups before we reached out to our large customer base, which we are working with currently and have been for some time. And as I mentioned, we did complete an EM&V that was done last year, and we will have a final report that we will provide to stakeholders and the commissioners, which will be performed by the end of this year. So that gives us yet another summer peak season to see how customers are interacting with the time of use rate. But as I mentioned earlier, we have seen great results from the EM&V, from the analysis that they have done. Again, we have seen that the consumption has reduced both in the summer and non-summer season, which drives those participant bill savings. We have seen customers lower their demand 4 to 9% at the system coincident peak, as well as that they're saving money annually. So overall, I mean, we do feel like we have had great success with our TOU program, to this point. So Brad, I will turn it over for you to talk more about our rate plan.
Thank you, Kim. Now, turning forward, we want to build off of that success. No question, we're proud of what we've been able to accomplish with the TOU rate to this point, and recognize the hard work that it's taken to develop those plans and execute that customer interaction and marketing to achieve what we have. But to go forward, we felt that we needed to keep a close eye to the industry. We need to make sure that we know what is going on, both across the nation, but also locally, and try to look to those sources for best practices or lessons learned. We also need to look at our own data and see how customers are responding, and make sure that we're seeing and understanding what's occurring. Lastly to that, we want to make sure that whatever we're proposing is part of a larger comprehensive effort. And that leads me to the rate modernization plan that I've mentioned a couple of times. But before we get there, let's look at the industry a little bit. For us, we retained some help from some industry consultants who are leaders in this area, but also complemented that with our own research to understand that TOU is kind of a bit of a puzzle. Not that it's difficult to understand or execute or some of those things, but just that there's a lot of local variation to it. But we did find some things that we felt were kind of key learnings, key takeaways from what we were seeing in the industry. And just a couple of those is that the TOUs are still really getting on their feet. Despite the rate design being something that's been around for quite a while, it hasn't been until recently that the TOU rate designs have really been able to reach their potential. And companies are starting to utilize them in quite a larger effort, but are still really connecting with customers and allowing people to understand and help them understand how these rates can be used, and allow people to move away from rate designs that they've been familiar with nearly all their lives. The other thing that we attempted to do was to affirm many of the things that we know are of issue. The opt-in, opt-out question was certainly important in 2018 when we first put these rates into practice. And at that time and since then, we've tried to keep a close eye on what are some of the general practices around these deployment approaches. These are some of the observations that we have found relative to whether an opt-in or opt-out might be preferred, or might help the company and the stakeholders achieve certain goals. But in general, we would offer that opt-in approaches tend to have higher participation, higher retention and performance on a per customer basis. But the there's no question that the opt-out will touch a larger number of customers. So the offset for that, or the concern for us, is some of the factors around customer satisfaction. And we believe that there is a direct relationship between the opt-out approach and some of those customer satisfaction observations. But still, we're keeping an eye on that and making sure that that's understood as we continue to roll forward in this TOU effort. Another part, and we mentioned this a couple of times, but the customer is no question a foundational element to what we're preparing to do. And as Kim mentioned, we've utilized a number of touch points with customers to better understand what they want, how they want their rates to work, and find ways to connect with them. On this particular slide, you'll see a series of studies and initiatives that we've purposefully went through across time to understand how our customers behave and how they look at a TOU rate. Some of these studies go back a number of years, and a number of them have been progressively more detailed as we've continued to seek deeper understanding. We even have plans going forward on here to continue to interact with customers through focus groups and some other mechanisms to continue that understanding. Another piece that we used to inform ourselves was to monitor what's going on in the state. It's just wise to be aware of what's going on in Missouri and make sure that the developments and things there, that we understand them, and that if they are applicable to us, that we find ways to provide recognition to that. But certainly have to understand that not always is what's good for one good for the other. And we're in the process of evaluating that. On this particular slide, we are aware of what's been going on with Ameren and their deployment of TOU, and we've been monitoring the proposals made by Empire in their recent case. We admit, there's a promise, I'm sure, in both of those approaches, and we want to try to glean from that what we can. But we do have to acknowledge that we're noticing differences just in the positioning of Evergy relative to Empire and to Ameren. Maybe it begins simply just in our status on AMI deployment, but it might also go further, maybe into the way we choose to interact with customers. Needless to say, we're trying to be sensitive and aware of these other developments, but certainly we are seeking to find a path that makes sense for Evergy as we get ready to file our own rate cases and explore this even further. So boiling it down, with respect strictly to time of use, our proposal has 3 parts. First of all, we want to build on the success of the 3-part rate. Without question, we believe that the initial design is meaningful and that it achieves results. As Kim mentioned, we are able to see those results. So with our forward-looking proposal, we seek to tweak that just a bit, just to see if we can better improve some of the performance or some of the adoption levels. But largely, the 3-part rate is successful, and we want to build on that. The building, we think, is going to occur through the proposal of a 2-part time of use rate. The point here being is that we're finding that some customers are just unwilling to commit to the high peak differentials that we see in the 3-part design, and are believing that a 2-part design would soften some of that and allow a larger number of customers to engage with the TOU rate design. We also believe the TOU rate design might be able to address some concerns with customers with heating and maybe even for electric vehicles, a segment that we've continued to try to reach out to. The last is that we want to make sure that our plan continues to leverage strong customer education, that without question, the success of these rates require education of the customer. not only to just make them aware, but also to make them, educate them on how to put the rate to use. A TOU rate, unlike many of the rate designs we have used in the past, it's an active rate design. You have to be aware of and respond to the time signals, periods that are part of the rate design. For years, for decades, we've had more passive rate designs where you just simply use energy and at the end of the month you receive a bill, and it's very difficult to understand or to control that. It's very binary. Either you use energy or you don't. Where TOU now introduces the idea of shifting some energy use to different periods to begin to affect your ultimate energy rate. So on this slide, this details some of the adjustments that we want to make to our three-part rate. They're not many. You can see them highlighted in orange down here and listed in the boxes along the top. But in general, we want to adjust the seasons a little bit to better align them across our jurisdictions. But also we want to affect a little bit of change to the differentials between the peaks and the off-peak pricing. We think this better follows the costs that we observe and sets out a better expectation for the customers. On the TOU, on the two-part TOU, we're wanting to focus on the summer. This is no question a period of time of highest cost relevance for the company, and we believe that by putting forth a TOU design that addresses that period will allow us to gain the primary benefit of the rate, but not expose customers to the full year-round effect of the TOU, and especially those customers who might have heating or some other off-peak usage of energy that is attractive to the company. So you can see the details here. Many of the periods and price differentials are very similar to the three-part rate, but there's just a bit of a difference in the deployment, focusing instead on the two-period design. And I mentioned the customer education. This slide highlights the elements of that customer education plan, and it really boils down to those 4 words along the left side. We want to continue to make the message simple. We want to be able to connect with our customers. We want them to see consistency across all of our platforms, and we want them to understand what they're signing up for and be a part of what Evergy is trying to help them understand. So as we shift to the modernization plan, we would like to conclude our presentation with a couple of slides that just gives the Commission an indication of the direction that we intend to go in our future rate case. We've talked about the TOU element a bit, and that certainly is at the core. But I wanted to highlight quickly our commitment to the belief that a portfolio approach is the way to go. I think we've seen similar positions taken by other utilities, both in the state and in the area. But the idea is, and this graphic kind of gives life to that a little bit, is that there is a spectrum of rates that can be made available to a customer. And that spectrum of rates balances between the risk and the change of price for their bill and the savings that they might receive. So let me give you an example. There could be a rate design, let's just say TOU, for example, that tends to be more dynamic. It tends to move around more, but it does give the customer a pretty high chance to save if they're willing to respond and change behaviors. But on the other end of the spectrum, there could be rate designs that customers prefer that are less variable, that maybe even are fixed, and in exchange are more expensive. But in the portfolio approach of the rate design appeals to a segment of customers who honestly aren't willing or maybe even able to change their energy usage and adjust to those time of use periods like other customers may. The key point being is that this portfolio approach allows you to set forth a series of rate options that can meet the customers where they are and help them pick solutions that provide a balance between those two elements and engage them in their energy usage and their energy behavior. Now, I won't spend a lot of time on this slide. I think there's a number of folks in this meeting who have seen this before, but this is some of the background around the context of our rate modernization plan. And many of the drivers, some born out of our sustainability transformation plan, but others coming out of more common industry points of view, have set out the foundation for what we're trying to accomplish. Now on that, this is the kind of the elements that we see coming with respect to our rate modernization plan. In addition to the time of use proposal that we just discussed moments ago, Evergy plans to devote quite a bit of effort to continuing to consolidate our rates and continue to move to one set of rate designs for our jurisdictions. I think you could probably anticipate that our first goal is to try to come together at the state level, and that's certainly our near-term goal. So what you should expect to see is continued movement to bring Missouri Metro and Missouri West in alignment as far as rate structures, rate offerings. We also plan to introduce subscription plus and prepay. A couple of rate options that can stand on the other side of the spectrum from TOU and fulfill that portfolio approach that we talked about a few slides ago. We believe that there is a segment of our customer population that wants these rates, and we're doing our due diligence to understand how they work within the industry and set forth some examples in our filings that will provide an opportunity for customers to use these rates. The last is kind of a compliance nod here, but I want to make sure that we've not lost sight of it. In our modernization plans, we do want to address low-income solar. This has been an element that we've embedded in a couple of stipulations, and we are certainly working to understand how to make this happen, and we'll have this as part of our proposal in that future rate case as well. So to conclude, and just to reiterate our rate design proposal, around TOU, we believe we've been successful in putting forth a good rate design, and we have accompanied it with the education and marketing to help really connect with customers and build an active user set. Within that, we do plan to tweak the existing TOU rate design, the three-part rate design, and complement it with a two-part rate design. And that finally, we will have TOU at the center of our rate modernization plans as we consider ways to deploy a portfolio of rates for our customers in our Missouri jurisdiction. With that, we're open to field any questions that anyone might have about that material.
All right, thank you. Let me see if we have any questions or comments from the bench. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Thank you, Judge. The information, the update on the TOU rates. I do have a question for Evergy. It's my understanding that staff feels that that the company has failed to file a class cost of service study that's been required in previous stipulations. So I'm wondering, what is the status of that study?
Those agreements, I think what you'll find is that we've been in contact with staff throughout the time that has passed since those original agreements and today. And there are efforts underway to address or have considered that those have been addressed along the way. Some of that came out of the consolidation studies that we filed earlier in the year. But looking forward, certainly we expect that all of our rate cases will include those levels of data, those consolidated studies that are referenced there. So to the extent that something is left unaddressed, it certainly will be as part of the upcoming rate cases.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Root?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. It's Commissioner Root for the court reporter. Yeah, just wanted to follow up, Mr. Lutz, on the chairman's question.
Mhm.
So what I heard you say is that you are guaranteeing that in your next rate case, you are going to address the things that you are supposed to address in the 2016 and 2018 stipulations. That's what I thought I heard. Can you confirm that I heard that correctly?
Yes, and the caveat that I would offer to that is that we have been participating in some other filings and other exchanges with staff and parties along the way. And there could be some debate about some of those elements, but we've been trying to accomplish those along the way. And to the extent that there's any that remain, we will attempt to cover those in the rate case. Yes.
Okay, because yeah, we can have debate on whether or not, but it's pretty darn clear that they're what you guys were supposed to perform. And I understand you can debate that, but I believe that from at least from my position, and I believe with the question you got from the chairman, is that the commission standpoint is it was pretty darn clear, and there shouldn't be any gray area about what you should do. So I'm encouraged that you guys are actually going to finally get around to doing that, because we've been allowing you to get this return on these investments for what 6 years now, and so your company is reaping the benefits of this, and we haven't yet seen the utilization of this technology to the benefit for the ratepayers at that point, and not complying with the things that we have put out and that you've agreed to just causes concern when we go to look at other things in the future. But I'm encouraged. I'm very encouraged that in your next rate case that you're going to be using the data set that was required in the 2016 agreement or staff's alternative data set. So are those the data sets you're going to use?
Yes, and to those points, I mean, the data, if I may clarify, I mean, the point you're mentioning echoes some of the sentiments offered by OPC, I would believe. And, although I can understand the desire and the connection with the rate design elements and the AMI system, I would like to assure you, sir, that we've been reaping a number of benefits on behalf of the customer through those years. Looking back, I've done some research on my own to understand the timing of those things. And if I understand it correctly, we were at end of life on a automated meter reading system. And this AMI investment allowed us to continue to benefit from automated metering. And when you combine that with the work that has been done on the billing systems, we've been able to present to customers over that time period a number of new data options and billing improvements that have benefited those customers. That I would contend, sir, that there have been benefits along the way. And certainly TOU represents another level to that, and we want to get there. But I would disagree that there has not been any customer benefit along those years.
I agree that there has been benefits, but you have not maximized or even come close to maximizing the technology. But to your point, yes, that you have been achieving benefits. And I think some of it is overshadowed by the fact that you failed to comply with 2 stipulations in 2016, 2018. And at times those glaring omissions tend to overshadow some of the successes that you are having along the way. But I'm encouraged that in 2022 rate case that we're kind of anticipating here that you're going to be rectifying those situations. So that is great. The only other questions I have is, I know you guys talked about on your previous slide a rate, a panel of rate options. I can't remember the word you used and stuff. Yeah, your plan elements. Did you guys look at modified seasonal rates in your proposal before?
To clarify, are you talking about just a change of seasons with respect to the current block rate designs?
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to identify. There's other types of rate designs that were mentioned in the 2016 stipulation, an agreement that you were to look at, and I did not see, modified seasonal rates. They weren't mentioned in your report. Responsible energy for using of inclining block rates, that wasn't mentioned in the report, but I believe that was in the 2016 agreement. Electric vehicle TOU rates for standalone chargers, I didn't see that in the report. The real-time pricing, didn't see that in the report. The peak time rebates, I think that was mentioned once in the report. Your critical peak rates and pricing, I think that was mentioned once in the report. So did you look at those things that were in the 2016 stipulation, and
Yes.
did you just not put them in the report because you didn't want to move forward, or did you contemplate that, or did you ignore it like you did the rest of the stuff in the 2016 stipulation?
Oh, no, nothing has been ignored. I mean, I think what I would offer is that there's been just a lot of transition that has occurred since 2016. I mean, without question. I mean, if you look at everything, whether it be the mergers, whether it be the billing system implementations, whether it be the finalization of the AMI MDM rollouts, there have been just a furious pace of change that's occurred from 2016 to today. And the company has done its best to try to adjust and respond to those commitments in light of that change. And unfortunately, it doesn't always line up. That in some cases, it's just more practical to not do those things at that time. And we've been trying to be communicative to staff and other parties on our processes so that they know where we're at. But more specific to your rates, I think what you would find there is that those rates are finding different paths. So for example, the electric vehicle rates are probably being pulled into the electrification to some degree. So the other filings that we have before you. Others are being pulled into discussions at MIA level. So like peak time rebates or some of those other designs are finding a better path through the MIA channels. So what I would offer is that those are being distributed out where they make the most sense, as opposed to being, kept somewhat arbitrarily in this relationship with TOU. Some of those things aren't really, what I would say, companions to TOU or options to TOU. Some of them are just other rate designs. And so the logic of keeping them wed to TOU may not be practical at this point. So that's what you're seeing. It's not not being ignored at all, but sometimes those things are being parsed out to different approaches that the company is taking.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I appreciate that response, and I can see how some of those probably may be being addressed in some of the other aspects. It's just, it's just hard to go back from 2016 to 5 years and track that when it could be included in previous things if they would have been addressed.
Yeah, and that highlights a good point that at minimum in our rate case filing, we need to provide a pathway, a transition, a way to connect the dots between then and now, so that questions like this can be addressed as part of the direct filing. So that's good advice. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's actually a good point you just mentioned, because I think in our in the IRP and the special circumstances and stuff, we do allow the utilities to just say this is being addressed somewhere else, or this is being addressed here, and to just reference it. And it does help us follow those things, so that it does not give the impression that you're failing to follow through on commitments if we can't detract them with a cursory review. So yeah, that's a good point you mentioned, Brad. I appreciate that. That's all I had for now, Judge. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Judge, this is Commissioner Holzman. I have a question.
Commissioner Holzman, thank you. Let me see if Commissioner Coleman, do you have any questions, Commissioner Coleman?
It's hard for me to unmute. No, I don't have any. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Coleman, thank you. Commissioner Holzman, when you're ready, sir.
All right, thank you. Could you elaborate on how the company specifically plans to overcome the challenges identified in the report to specifically address the accessibility of time of use rates designed for net metered customers? We've had this discussion in previous time of use rate discussions, so I want to see how Evergy plans to handle it.
Right. We've had a lot of discussion about this. I mean, to begin, we think that the constraint starts with statute, that the way the current net metering statutes and by proxy the regulations in our tariff, they just preclude us from using time of use periods for the period of, or for the purpose of netting. So honestly, the best solution that we've been able to come up with is one that we've come up with just very recently. In fact, we're trying to come up with some tariff language as we speak, but that is to come to the commission with a mirror tariff, in a sense, a largely duplicative tariff to the net metering tariff that's already there, but to include provisions that would allow and handle the TOU netting processes. This would allow us to not be constrained by the legislative process to change that statute, but would allow the commission to exercise its authority to approve a rate design or a tariff, and we could create a mirror of the current net metering, but one that has proper provisions to deal with TOU periods instead of being constrained by the monthly billing period that's embedded in statute.
Okay. And so what's the likelihood that you think you're going to require a statutory change to be able to provide TOU to net metering customers? I mean, are you confident that this workaround will be successful, or do you still think you're going to have to change the statute?
Yeah, two parts there. I believe that the tariff approach, we've not consulted with all legal internally to drive this completely to ground, but I have all reason to believe that the commission has the authority to approve a tariff that's in addition to the one that's there to comply with statute. So I feel very good there that will be well received. Now, to your original question about the statutory change, we have reached out to Ameren and have discovered that they had some language that had been proposed to address this. So we're working, maybe at my level, at least at this point, to start to coordinate what it might look like for us to explore statutory change. I think the language, sir, might have even been shared with you and your advisors, I believe. So that's the language that we're considering today.
Well, and the issue from my vantage individually, having been in the legislature when a lot of this came to be, I'm always worried about opening up chapters that would encourage other changes that may not be as welcomed as this change. So if there is a way to do it, so would you ask for a waiver or a variance, something that would allow us to do a mirrored tariff?
I'm going to rely on my legal counsel to tell me that. I don't know if we think a waiver is needed yet. Like I say, we're in our very early stages of rounding out this proposal, but I would believe as a non-lawyer that we've complied with statute through the existing tariff, and that this would be an additional tariff to address a new subset of customers. it would be largely the same, except it would have specific provisions to handle the time periods introduced by TOU instead of being reliant on a monthly billing period.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I have a second question here that deals with electric vehicles. The report shared that the electric vehicle owners made a substantial movement to charging their vehicles overnight after enrolling in the plan, and the report says from 24 to 84%. How does this compare to what your expectations were, and can that level of load shifting persist? And does the 84% represent the upper limit of what you think is possible, or is there still more capacity for folks to make that choice?
Okay. Kim Winslow, would you be able to assist on that response?
Yeah, I'll do my best so that the EM&V would show kind of that range there. We will continue with our secondary EM&V or our final EM&V. We are continuing to work or, have that analysis done if that is still persisting. That was at a very small number of EV drivers. We did not see as much of an uptake with EV drivers onto the TOU rate as what we had hoped. That was a result of that EM&V coming to analysis. And we have been focused more on this year, 2021, trying to connect some of our messaging back with EV drivers as well as the thermostat customer, low income, and with partnering with that TOU. So we have seen some increase in EV driver adoption with those TOU rates, but it has been with a more focused campaign. So we're going to be, really looking forward to seeing how that continues to unfold, especially with respect to the EM&V that we'll have complete at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Judge, that concludes my questions for the moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me see if we have any further questions. Commissioner Kolkmeyer, any questions?
No, sir. No, thank you. Thank you, Judge.
I think I may have just a few questions, and I'll just throw this up for whomever from Evergy would like to respond. And this is on customer education and shadow billing. I think on page 21, the company discussed shadow billing and how it formed the foundation for its TOU engagement strategy. And I guess I wondered if the company could talk about what role shadow billing would continue to have in customer education and engagement strategies.
Do you want me to take that one, Brad?
Please.
Yeah, so we did have extensive discussion with stakeholders beyond about the concept of shadow billing and what that meant. And
I'm
so,
sorry, Judge.
Yes.
I need Miss Winslow to start again and to speak up. She's not coming through very loud.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I mean, we can hear you, or I can hear you, Ms. Winslow, but I can't always make out the words you're saying. I'm hoping you can get closer to a microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Is this a little bit better? No?
I heard you say I'm sorry about that pretty clearly, and then I lost you after that.
Maybe this is a little bit better? Oh,
yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah. Yes, so with respect to the shadow billing question, so we had, significant discussion with stakeholders early on when we first began, putting forth our education plan. We discussed shadow billing and what role that would play. What we did find was that rather than what is more impactful than having a, within on the paper bill with a comparison of the customer's use under the time of use rate versus the general service rate, we have taken the route of those rate coach report and those weekly reports that we are sending to customers. So we have found that to be very effective. As I mentioned, there was, we have a very high open rate with our customers who are on the TOU rate and engaging with those reports. So kind of moving towards, again, more that the digital aspect, sending them emails with respect to how they're performing on the rate and giving that more I guess, not real-time feedback. I mean, they can certainly go out and look on the website to see how they're doing, but they are receiving these weekly AMI reports to see what they're, how they are performing on the rate. So that is, when we talk with stakeholders, that is our version of the shadow billing. And that is found to be very well adopted across the utility industry.
Okay, thank you. And regarding prepay, and before the company even filed this report, is it true that customers can already make prepayments even before you file this report?
Yes, I'll address that. As far as prepay, I am not aware of any option that we have currently for prepayment in our Missouri jurisdictions. Kim, is that consistent with your understanding?
Yeah, that's correct, Brad. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think the report also discusses subscription pricing options. Are you able to identify other utilities across the country that offer a similar program?
Yes. Again, we're working with Brattle, a consultant in this area, to round out that research. But certainly, yes, one of the more prolific examples that you might hear about recently is the Duke, Florida examples. Lon Huber has led an effort to deploy a subscription rate design there, and that has been communicated quite a bit through many of the industry publications, and is probably the most easily accessible example to draw from.
Do you know if any of the other utilities that offer subscription pricing will couple that program with demand response or energy efficiency incentives?
Yes, sir. The subscription plus approach, they call it, is actually, I think, generally preferred because standalone, the subscription rate might be considered to have some weaknesses. But when partnered with other offerings, it can lead to more general benefit for both participants and the non-participants.
All right, thank you. I think those are all my questions. Anything further from the bench before we move on to staff? All right, hearing nothing. Evergy, thank you very much. And Mr. Stokes, or whoever is presenting from staff, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
May it please the Commission, I'm Kurt Stokes on behalf of Commission staff. This is primarily an informational case. It's not a rate design case. Traditionally, there are no tariffs to promulgate, and nobody's asking for new rates or presenting evidence to support new rates. In addition, under sections 393-1400 and 393-1675, Evergy has elected PISA treatment and would be prohibited from updating its rates until its next rate case anyway, which we anticipate in early 2022. Therefore, it's not lawful to update
I'm
any
sorry,
rates.
Judge. Judge, I was wondering if Mr. Stokes could maybe slow down and maybe take his mask off. I'm having a hard time catching him.
Okay. I'm going to get closer to the phone. Is that it? How's this? Is it better?
Just a little bit slower, okay?
Will do. I'll slow down. So in summary, any decisions about Evergy's rates should be reserved for its upcoming rate case and should be based on the evidence presented in that case. However, staff does ask the Commission to exercise its authority under section 393.140, subparagraph 5 of the revised statutes of Missouri to issue an order in this case requiring Evergy to include a plan to roll out system-wide time-of-use rates in its direct filing in its next rate case. Staff asks the Commission to order Evergy to address first customer notices in education, Second, applicable time of use determinants. Third, establishment of separate winter rates and shoulder rates. And fourth, the meter and usage data that's listed in a document that I'd like to share later, rather than read through all of the data that we want to be provided in this next rate case. I just ask that we be allowed to email the judge and the parties and include that. Further, staff asked the commission to order Evergy to provide no later than its direct filing in its next rate case as much AMI billing data to staff and to OPC as can reasonably be provided. And even to the extent that Evergy can provide that AMI data it has in its possession now, it's useful for staff to learn the format and limitations of the billing data that Evergy is retaining. The order that staff is asking for in this case is necessary to move Evergy forward on its path to fully utilize the AMI its customers are already paying for. Evergy should provide its customers with rates that more accurately reflect cost causation and to inform customer decisions about when and how to use energy. Evergy's rates should ensure that customers causing more costs bear those costs, and the customers who are causing fewer costs see appropriate savings in their energy bills. That is not where we are at right now. Evergy began deploying AMI meters in 2014, but Evergy's customers still do not have the price signals available under time of use rates and still have not been sufficiently educated on the concept that in general, energy used during the daytime is more cost intensive and energy used during the night is less cost intensive. To achieve the goal of cost-effective time-of-use rates that educated customers can benefit from, staff recommends that the Commission order Evergy to comply with the Commission orders and staff recommendations issued in previous cases. In case ER-2016-0156, the Commission approved a stipulation requiring Evergy West, then operating as Evergy GMO, or I'm sorry, KCP&L GMO, to file a case that included GMO's proposal to make time of use rates available to all customers, including a study of applicable time of use determinants and a study of the reasonableness of modifying GMO's seasonal rates to establish rates for peak winter months separate from the spring and fall shoulder months, including applicable billing determinants. In case number ER-2018-0146, staff recommended the promulgation of a time of use rider for Evergy's general service classes and large power service class. In case number ER-2018-0145 and 0146, staff recommended implementation of a low impact, low differential, long time period time of use rate design to begin sending a price signal to customers and introduce the concept that, in general, energy used during the daytime is more cost intensive and energy used during the nighttime is less cost intensive. In that case, Evergy's evidence showed that an AMI meter is insufficient for a customer to benefit from time of use rates, and that educational programming is necessary for customers to benefit from time of use rates. But Evergy did not provide evidence in that case explaining how Evergy proposed to educate its customers on time of use rates, and Evergy provided no testimony explaining how pilot time of use rates might transition to permanent time of use rates. From staff's perspective, the status quo is not acceptable. The path to effective time of use rates that can benefit customers is the path proposed by staff and ordered by the Commission since 2016. Staff asked the Commission to order Evergy to include a proposal to make time of use rates available to all customers in all classes in its direct filing in its next general rate case. These time of use rates should be designed to more accurately recover costs than current rates without being so aggressive as to adversely impact customers who are unable to shift their demand, shift their usage, or significantly impact the revenue recovery. To design effective time of use rates that will benefit customers, Evergy's proposal must include 4 key features. First, customer notices and education. Second, applicable time of use determinants. Third, establishment of separate winter rates and shoulder rates And fourth, the meter and usage data on the exhibit that I would propose to circulate by email. So with those four features, that's really where we want Evergy's filing to go, and to provide time of use rates that are useful for customers. Are there any questions?
Mr. Stokes, thank you. Let me see if we have any bench questions. Mr. Chairman. Chairman, any questions or comments? You may be on mute. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Roop, any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. I appreciate it. For the court reporter, this Commissioner Roop. Thank you, Mr. Stokes, for that list of things that you recommend that the commission order. Did I hear in that list that the commission should have the company file opt-out TOU rates for residential customer classes?
Default opt-out, yes.
They would be default.
I'm sorry, default, not opt-out. My apologies.
So was one of your recommendations to have opt-out, default opt-out TOU rates?
Maybe I can have Ms. Lange with staff explain a little bit more in detail what we're proposing.
I just wanted a clarification. You don't have to go into details. I was trying to listen and write down. I just wanted to see if one of your recommendations was to have the company file opt-out TOU rates.
Sure, and at a high level, they would not be opt-out rates. They would be the generally applicable rates. I don't think staff is opposed to continuation of exploring more complex time variant designs. So in a sense, you could opt out of the default TOU rate to a more complex time variant rate. But our intent is, as we've expressed in a number of dockets, is to do away with the time insensitive rates that currently most customers pay.
Okay, so even though like you guys agreed to Amren's electric case where you agreed to opt out TOU rates, you're not recommending that Evergy, that the commission order Evergy to do the same?
I think that what we are recommending in this case is for Evergy to present proposals for a rate case, and I think what those results would need to be would be questions subject to litigation in that rate case. And I'm not trying to dodge your question there. It is a very a very dicey area there on what we can order outside of a general rate case or request you to order outside of a general rate case.
Okay. Well, technically, I think you can request anything. We just don't have to do it. So, so would there be what are your thoughts on having the company's proposed option 2 on their time of use rates, having those be opt-out instead of opt-in?
I'll take my mask off with the risk to my colleagues in my room here. At this point, I think that customers outside of the very small, less than 1% of Evergy customers who've experienced those time of use rates do not have the education and the background to be prepared for the adverse bill impact that those rates would cause. If more broadly deployed or deployed as an opt-out, we would be very concerned about adverse customer impacts if those were, if rates of that magnitude were the first step for these customers.
Okay, I think that was all the questions I had for staff. Thank you, Judge.
Commissioner Roop, thank you. Commissioner Coleman, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Holzman, any questions? And I don't know, Commissioner Holzman, if you're still with us, or if you're on mute, let me give you another chance. Commissioner Holzman? Commissioner Coltmeyer, any questions?
No, Your Honor, not at this time.
All right, thank you. I think I just have a brief question for staff, and I think I'd ask a similar question of the company. Is it true that even before filing this report, that customers have the opportunity to make prepayments now?
So, Judge, the best person to answer that probably isn't in the room, but it's our understanding that any customer could, if you will, overpay an existing bill or make a payment to the company. I'm not aware of any provisions that they have that would cause that to be refunded and not applied to a future balance, but we learn something new every day about these companies' billing systems. So to our knowledge, yes, you could prepay.
Okay, all right, thank you, Ms. Lange. All right, anything further from the bench before we move on to public counsel? All right, hearing nothing, Mr. Williams or Dr. Mark, whoever wants to present, whenever you're ready.
I think that'll be me. Your Honor, can you hear me?
I can, go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, the commission, for having this opportunity to address all of you. We filed about 8 pages of comments in this docket that I think clearly express where we're at in terms of where we stand on time of use, in particular with Evergy. I'd like to take this opportunity I made some notes here of just what I've heard and just summarize some of the key points. First of all, let's focus on the positives. A 4 to 9% reduction in demand is great. A 5 to 10% reduction in energy consumption for general residential customers, and a 3 to 6% reduction in energy consumption for electric space heating customers. If we saw anywhere near those results in any of our MIAs, we would be doing backflips. I mean, those are great numbers, and it speaks to the power of pricing electricity as close as we can to its actual cost of service. However, I'd like to focus on a couple things that I've heard today and some apprehensions that we have moving forward. And first of all, be remiss if I didn't point out that we've had a number of studies over the course of the past 6 years. My memorandum identified at least 13 studies. Based off of the PowerPoint that I saw earlier today, there could be more that I'd be adding to that. We've had at least 2 rate cases, coming up on our 3rd one. Hundreds of millions of dollars in hardware, hundreds of millions of dollars in software. And we do have utilities now that are moving towards mandatory time of use. Look no further than the state of California that implemented mandatory time of use this year. To address the education for a second, I think the company has invested an enormous amount of capital and time and resources in customer education, coaching, bill analysis, customer facing on their website. We had a total of 5,538 customers between the 2 utilities that participated in this. I think roughly 1,700 dropped out at some point due to moving or other issues. If I calculated it correctly, based off of Mr. Lutz's earlier PowerPoint, noted that there was a 42% unique user click in terms of their coaching. That means 42% of the 5,000 plus customers would have clicked on and followed up with that coaching. That equates to roughly 2,326 customers. Of those customers, how many customers still continue to click on it after that first month or after that initial click? According to the PowerPoint, it was 61%. So this would lower that number even further down to 1,400 customers. 1,400 customers out of a little over 5,500 customers comes out to about 25% of the customers that were utilizing this technology. I point that out there to illustrate that this sample that we're seeing here, this roughly 1% of customers that participated in the pilot program, may not be representative of the entire population. Generally, customers that would have jumped at the chance to participate in a pilot program, and we know that, for example, there were a lot of like company participants in this pilot program, aren't necessarily the average Evergy customer. So we should probably par back the overall results that we might get a little bit. However, again, being spread out to 500,000 plus customers, you're going to see significant energy and demand savings if we were to price electricity more towards its actual cost of service. I'd like to speak a little bit about the benefits of AMI technology, and by benefits, I'm going to use the air quotes here. We've been critical of utilities in the past of moving forward with AMI technology and not utilizing the full benefits that are available to customers. Based off of feedback earlier from Mr. Lutz, the two things that I heard, in addition to what customers received in terms of benefits, were both billing and data. I'd like to address billing first. To recall our last general rate case, billing was a central issue. Billing problems were a central issue. That was the conversion into the billing software that we're speaking of. Commission may recall that there was a change.org petition at that time. If not, you can simply Google change.org and do the search word for KCP&L. If you were to click on KCP&L audit, change.org, over 68,000 customers signed a change.org petition, in part towards the commission and to express their dissatisfaction with both the price of electricity and in particular the billing system that was at play. We had continual billing problems earlier this year where KCP&L customers had to go ahead, KCP&L had to suspend their disconnections due to billing issues. In terms of data, the company has cited that the increased amount of data that AMI has allowed the company to obtain. I would merely point out that the staff report goes to great lengths in pointing out that that data has not been shared and that the stipulations have not been met to date. So data is an issue, and it is an issue that is clearly plaguing this case and is a concern moving forward and in terms of sharing that data. On the last point, there was an issue of benefits, and peak time rebates was raised as a potential option. There were questions as to electrification, different types of rate designs that were missing from this overall portfolio, and peak time rebates was raised. Mr. Lutz stated that this was a dialogue that's taking place currently in MIA. I'm aware of no such dialogue of peak time rebates in any discussions I've had with the company as it regards to MIA. So this is news to me. The next thing I'd like to just address is the rate modernization plan. So the plan includes not only the 2 time of use rates that are being posited out there, but I'd like to spend just a brief moment speaking to the other rates, which include the consolidation, which is something that our office is most definitely in favor of. We've filed now and set in multiple rate cases on the importance and the cost savings that can come from consolidation of Evergy West and Evergy Metro. In terms of the Subscription Plus program, I would agree with Mr. Lutz insofar as that a subscription program by itself is not a favorable rate design. Let me break that down for you. A subscription by itself would just be a flat fixed fee. This is the equivalent of just a buffet style price signal. You pay $100 a month, you use as much electricity as you want. This is the antithesis of a time of use rate. The plus is a larger question mark. Mr. Lutz has posited that Lon Huber from Duke, the mastermind behind this, the Netflix style subscription pricing, might be something that Evergy would be interested in doing. Again, this is the first I've heard of this. We'll definitely be interested in hearing exactly what the company would be putting on top of that. I would point out, just as it is right now, a subscription program is not dependent on AMI technology. As to prepay, I routinely pay more for my electric bill than I need to. And that money is then knocked off in my next month's bill. The only difference between that and prepay as an offered program would be the ability to disconnect a customer quicker. That's it. In terms of low-income solar, we welcome the company, and whether or not stipulations are followed up or not, that is one that the company has put forward that they're going to do. So we encourage the company to engage stakeholders as soon as possible over the low-income solar, because as I can imagine, that is going to be of much interest to a lot of advocates. Finally, I'd just like to focus on, let me speak a little bit to the staff comments in terms of the opt-out rates and the opt-out rate default, because that is an issue a recommendation that OPC made in this case. I believe, we specifically asked for the commission to give us guidance in terms of Evergy and the staff and interveners to propose a opt-out default option, a reasonable opt-out default option. And the key word I'm going to focus on there is the term reasonable. And not to put words into staff's mouth, but this is my interpretation of staff's position on this, that a opt-out, that the training wheels approach of a time of use rates, which is similar to what Ameren has right now, is the preferred method moving forward. That this is due to the lack of time and education, having customers largely get used to a day-night rate and slowly acclimating them into larger differentials is the preferred way to move forward. We recommended an opt-out option merely if those differentials were larger. Obviously, in a rate case and whatever's put forward there, the rate case will, the record will speak for itself, and parties are free to argue one way or the other. We would agree that in general, that we need to move towards a mandatory time of use option. If the differentials were greater than what is, for example, what's included in today's Ameren case, I would put forward that the opt-out option would be preferred. And again, that's OPC speaking here. I'm not speaking for staff on that. But from our vantage point, it would be over concerns over customers having a larger bill than they otherwise would. Again, with the differentials we're talking about here, they're relatively small. And that is the idea behind a training wheel approach. And I can clarify this in follow-up questions if there are any. Finally, I'd like to emphasize that OPC is really looking for the commission, for commission's guidance here. And whether that request is, followed through or not, that's our request. Again, 2 rate cases, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, double-digit studies by third parties, mind you, multiple third parties. Again, as I hear, we're engaged with the Brattle group again to go ahead and look at more studies. This is not counting the focus groups. This is not counting the surveys that we've put out there. If we were to add all of those dollars together relative to the actual number of customers that have participated in this program, the cost-benefit ratio would be out of sync. The cost would far outweigh the actual benefits that have been produced. Commission's in a perfect opportunity to reverse this trend, to move forward, and to realize the savings and the benefits that AMI can bring forward. We hope that the commission gives us guidance on that issue. It's the end of September right now. Rates if the companies they put forward publicly, they plan to file, in the first quarter of 2022, rates, you're not looking for rates to go into effect probably for about a year from now. A year from now seems like a reasonable amount of time for the company to start engaging customers in education. A year from now seems like a reasonable amount of time to start really following up with all of the money that we've already invested. I'm not even just speaking about the hardware, but the software, the websites, the coaching, all of this. They're in a very unique position to move forward with that. My big concern is that a year from now, we will have another pilot. We will have another study, and we will continue this process indefinitely. So the ask here is, at a minimum, really just to move forward and having the company propose something that was agreed, similar to what was agreed to in the last Ameren rate case. A company that hasn't realized those same sort of return on and of AMI investments like Evergy has, but is moving forward with a much more proactive AMI time of use rollout. I'll leave my comments there, and if there are any questions, be more than happy to answer anything. Thank you.
Dr. Mark, thank you. Let me see if we have any bench questions. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Questions?
Thank you. Commissioner Roop?
Yeah, we'll never remiss the opportunity to speak with the good Dr. Mark. First off, thank you, Doctor. I really appreciate how you started with the positive, and you really kind of did take the step back that we all kind of do need to see. And that's hat tip, hand claps to the company. You guys did a good job on educating people. You did a great job with your wait till 8 and people understood it, and you saw the reduction in energy. You saw the reductions that were impressive. And I, Dr. Mark, you said if we saw those in a MIA program, we'd be super happy. And that's a great line. I mean, we would be. And now we're looking at this going, well, so I believe that the company has the opportunity now, and I think the commission should, and I would encourage all interveners, all third parties, all staff, all OPC, all witness, anybody that even has a remote interest in this case, to put forth some form of a reasonable opt-out default option of TOU for the commission to consider. If that is presented, it will be heavily considered by certain commissioners. And I believe we've seen this already done in the other side of the state. So I encourage that. You are asking for direction. Hopefully that will serve as some direction. But Dr. Mark, I guess my question to you is, in the legislature, when there's an issue that you don't want to deal with, what do you do to it?
You punt it.
You study it.
Well, yeah, that too.
you create an interim committee over the session, over the summer.
Right.
You appoint some people in and you study.
Right.
And the fact that we've had 13 studies, 11 studies, 12, however many, just is show. And let's see, all of us on the commission, we're in the legislature, they all know the answer. That when you don't want to deal with something, you study it. And that's just a way and Bill Kenny is not here, but this is the most picturesque, quintessential issue of kicking the can down the road that we have ever seen here in the commission. Multiple years, 13 studies, 2 rate cases, open dockets and hearings and things of that nature. And here we are at the same thing. And now we're talking about not even doing as much as what we did, 6 months ago, a year ago with the other side of the state. So I guess my question is more of a comment of thank you for bringing back the big picture, and helping us realize the great job that the company did do in achieving these metrics with their program. And they've proven that they can do it. They've proven that the customers will respond. It's time to just let them run and let them run with this. So thanks again for being an advocate for these issues. And hopefully you'll have the guidance that you're looking for to come up with some type of a reasonable opt-out default option for us to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Coleman, any questions?
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holzman, I'm not sure if you're still with us, but just in case, but Commissioner Holzman, any questions? Commissioner Kolkmeyer, any questions?
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
I think I just maybe have one or two quick questions. Does Public Counsel have any feedback regarding the company's shadow billing, or have any recommendations on how the company could improve that?
I don't off the top of my head, Your Honor, but you know, if something novel comes, we'll be sure to file it in this docket.
Evergy's report discusses the possibility of offering a subscription pricing option. Are you familiar with any similar programs that other utilities have offered across the country?
I am familiar with the Duke, Florida, that Mr. Lutz referenced. And, you know, I would direct the commission or interested parties. There's definitely some good write-ups in some of the trade journals, like Mr. Lutz was talking about, Utility Dive. And probably, if you just search the word Netflix, you'd find it. But the idea is that you'd have some sort of fixed fee and additional add-ons. In this case, it might be a free thermostat, and you would be obliged to go ahead and also have events called. And that would be the subscription plus this. So there's something additional that would come to it. I'm curious if what the company means by it, because the report itself doesn't go into any great lengths about the subscription plus program. You know, the one concern that we would have is that a lot of the pluses are already being realized or offered in other programs, like MIA, for example.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mark. I don't think I have any further questions. Anything further from the bench or from the parties before we wrap up this on the record presentation?
Judge, on behalf of the company, I want to thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to be here today and to discuss these issues. I'm getting excited about all the next rate cases and all the discussions that will be continuing in that context. This has certainly been an informational docket, and I think Mr. Lutz and Ms. Winslow did a good job of exploring and explaining to the commission the company's plans for the future in that rate case and how we're taking steps to modernize our rate structure. We don't have any request to change rates in this docket. It's not a contested case. And I don't think we really got formal evidence to support an order coming out of the commission here, but we're very grateful for the opportunity to give you a preview of what's coming in the next rate cases in the next year. I would offer, if it would be helpful to the commission, that we'd be happy to file that presentation in EFIS and provide a copy of those to all the parties of the presentation that we made today, if that would be helpful.
I expect it would, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher, I appreciate the offer, and I would appreciate it, but yeah, that just gets filed in EFIS.
I tried to take notes as quickly as I could on what staff was suggesting, and I really missed many more points than I got, I think. I think it would be inappropriate for the commission to issue an order like what staff is asking here. There's no evidence to support an order like that. While we're certainly interested in the guidance of the parties and what they'd like to see, I think the appropriate place to debate these issues is going to be in the next rate case. And we're looking forward to doing that, to moving forward to, and I appreciate many of the comments that were made from the commission and the staff and public counsel too about the progress that we're making here. So thank you very much for that.
Anything further, either from the bench or from the parties? All right, hearing nothing, then we will go off the record in this on the record presentation. Thank you so much. We are off the record. Thank you, everyone.